in this sort of a scenario, the perception was that like you will never play anyone who could actually beat you online in the bragging rights match if it has like your name, or if they know it. People thought that you tried to avoid ever playing certain people who you thought could beat you. Is there anything to this?
No, absolutely not. You have to remember back then. Again, I'm not trying to make myself sound bigger than I was, but it was basically me and everybody else.
Okay.
It's kind of like when Tiger Woods was dominating, right? And half the people want to see me lose, and half the people are rooting for me. And what's worse is, I would literally get hundreds, if not thousands, of challenges like every single week, like in ICQ, on IRC, in email, on forums. Like, it was just a constant barrage because nobody else knew it. There was nobody else to kind of target. So everyone thought that they were the best. Everyone thought they could beat me. Anyone that's from there, like, they're crushing their dorm mates or whatever, thought they could beat me. People, they have every right to think that. But I didn't have the hours in the day to play everybody. And so, kind of what I ended up kind of defaulting to was there were people that I played with very, very regularly. My teammates, on my team, and people kind of, in the US certainly. I never lost to any of them in practice, never even came close. And so they would go out and they would play these guys that are boasting that they can beat me, and my teammates, my friends would beat them. So, it just became like this way to filter out the noise. It's like, hey, look, if you can beat him, come talk to me, because I play him every single day, 5 times a day, and he has never come close to beating me. If you can't beat him, don't talk to me.
Because that's an interesting pattern that actually repeats throughout Quake, no matter what year you're looking at. Like, if you actually look at the best Quake duelers of all time, very few of them actually were considered like the crazy aimer, There's maybe like 1 or 2, but actually in general, people like Fatality, Rafa, etc., they all usually had, like, in the case of Fatality, he had pretty good aim. But the idea was they all usually won by like having the best. They could like control the game, or they had the best understanding of what the opponent would do, or they just had the best. They could run the map the best, whatever it would be. It would usually not actually be that much about fighting skills. Do you think this is a general point about Quake? Because Quake obviously was always billed as like it's all mechanics, it's all the sick aim, Whereas actually it sounds like for the best players, it was really more another aspect.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Counter-Strike today is very different, right? Because Counter-Strike, you can kill somebody in one shot.
Yeah.
If you had armor and health in Quake, you can't do that. So, whereas in Counter-Strike, aim is paramount and probably the single most important thing. In Quake, in those kind of dueling kind of games, it's not. You have to have good aim. But like, even if let's just say we're trading rail shots, and I have control, you rail me twice and I've whiffed on both, I can just run away. Because, the problem with the rail is that you can't force someone to engage with you. You can't, I could just walk around a corner and you can't finish me off. Whereas with the rocket, if I have control, I'm usually already close enough where I can finish you off. Or I could switch to a rail, or I can switch to a chain gun to kind of finish you off. So that was at least kind of the way that I thought Quake 2 was supposed to be played. It seemed to work out decently for me.
Most of the times I've ever done a really stupid tweet or comment that, like, even if there was like a vague sentiment that was fine about it, like the way I phrased it was totally over the top. Almost every time I've ever done anything legit fucked up that wasn't just banter, it's nearly always when, like, I've had a terrible night's sleep, or someone's just pissed me off right before I've gone on the air, and I've thought, oh well, whatever, I'll be fine when I go on camera, I'll do the show or whatever. And then what happens is, even in that moment, I'm feeling so frustrated, and then because I'm frustrated, I can't get my thoughts out properly, and then the fact I can't get my thoughts out properly makes me sometimes go too hard on it, like I overstate something, or even worse, you say it in a very blunt manner, and because you're frustrated, when you're really frustrated, you're not really in like a super empathetic frame of mind, you kind of think about stuff like, this is pissing me off, and so it's easy to say fucked up things, as harsh as that might sound, right? They're not the right thing to say, but it can happen.
And that's just one of the difficulties that a lot of streamers, or like anybody who's like just going to be in a live scenario, like, I mean, anything can get said. There's no like retakes. You can always like retract, kind of like go back on what you said or something like that. But at the end of the day, like what's said is said. Anything can be clipped. Anything can be taken out of context. Like anything can happen. Like it's it's a very like dangerous. It's just very dangerous, you know, like in your own emotions can like definitely affect what you're saying. So like everybody's like a human being, and it's just difficult.
Like the coping mechanism was the opposite of looking into it. It was like just push it aside and ignore it, pretend that's not a problem. It's like, is this a topic you've ever looked into? The way I tried to attack it is less from like the medical side, because obviously I didn't want to take antidepressants. I didn't want to like I have been in therapy before, you know, like I didn't really feel like it personally helped me. And it's, you know, I not to say that like it can't help like other people, but for like my personal experiences, like it didn't help me. So I wanted to go like a different route to like try to help myself, like because these things obviously weren't helping me. I have taken antidepressants, and it just numbed me out to the point where it's like I would rather be sad than like feel numb. Like was my perspective on like how I felt about it. And I decided to go a different route. Like I love like listening to philosophy, like listening to like lectures, like reading on stuff like that. And I think that, you know, the mind is like a really powerful, like if you can take control of your mind, and like perspective is the most important thing in life. Like, sure.
Like let's say this situation, for instance, like I could sit here in this situation and be bitter and spiteful and like just kind of recess, and, you know, I could have gone from this in like a completely negative way. However, like I've learned in my life, you know, where whenever you have failure, you can like the most growing moments in my life and the times I've learned the most is when I've like failed the hardest. And and I think that, I mean, that's like the truth for like a lot of people. So I think that perspective and how you move into things is incredibly important. And that's kind of the angle I attacked it from. That's what helped it work for me. And like, that's originally what I wanted to get across to people. Obviously, like it definitely didn't go out that way, but
sure.
Yeah.
For example, even though I will be very critical of Valve when I think they've done a bad design, I'm not one of those people who just says, you know what, just go ahead and listen to every pro player. They know better than you. Because actually, I think we've all heard the famous saying about like how things are like a camel is a horse designed by committee. It's a great quote, right? The problem is when you let a lot of competing voices in, listen, some of those ideas are good, some of them probably shit. So I've heard some great suggestions from pro players for fixing maps. I've heard some that I really just thought, maybe you just play that spot on that map, mate, and you just want to make it easy, you know. How do you weigh up what criticism to take, what feedback to take? Because obviously you want it, but at the same time, it's hard to gauge, right, what's useful.
Yeah, well, you just asked, how do you be a level designer? Because that's all it is. It's just listening to feedback. And so you do have to have an ear for not just, like, for instance, to give you an example, Sal was speaking with Thorin about cash. Now, if you were to go by the community's standards of a professional player, you would be an elitist and you wouldn't listen to somebody like Thorin. But Thorin is an incredibly intelligent person.
Sure. Yeah.
And so he had some really great feedback for cash. Like, as a matter of fact, the boost spot, it used to be the boost spot on cash, which is to the right from T-spawn. Yeah. It used to be that you would be boosted up by a teammate onto the boost spot, and then you would have to jump up again onto some boxes. Okay. And Thorin said, you know, guys, that should just be a ramp. And Sal was doing his job as a level designer and listening, and I thought it was a great suggestion, so we implemented it. And that's just an example of how you really have to just focus on what is being said and the merit of the idea, and try to take, you know, obviously if a professional player gives you feedback, that's very valuable, but it could be just some random person on Reddit who has the right idea.
Do you think that the competitive community should have its own little curated set of maps, and that's just another option on the screen when making a game?
Well, that's pretty much Valve's idea with the active duty map pool.
Okay.
Like,
I'm not sure they've entirely succeeded on that, but again, that's my own subjective opinion.
That's feedback.
It's feedback to you. Unfortunately, I can't talk to Valve, mate. You know, not all of us are so blessed.
Hey, they listen to everything. They listen to everything.
Yeah, but a man who's in a hermetically sealed, empty room might be listening to everything. But if I'm not in the room with him, doesn't help us, you know. So, and the intention's great. Like, I love that. I love the fact he's open to it. The problem is, how do I chip a little tunnel in there to talk to him? That's my problem in life, you know.
Well, you are talking to Valve. The challenge, okay. and Sal once said this better than I could say it.
Okay.
He said, Valve is always listening. You just don't know that they're listening. and I think that's really the way it works.
Okay, well, I'll avoid obvious comparisons with the Stasi from the 1970s, 80s there, just for the sake of good taste. So my question is this, okay, I know even when you beat them here, they still thought that they were going to be the best and that Koreans wouldn't be better, you know. Did you actually know that Korea was going to get very good in League of Legends as well?
So I got ridiculed on CLG Ventrilo. Cool hangouts like way back in the day. CLG Big Fat GG Ventrilo, or Big Fat GG Ventrilo, which became the CLG Ventrilo. Shout out to my boy GG. So we used to like hang there, and like all the like English speaking like top tier season 1 and preseason players would like hang there, and I was like, Korea's gonna be the best. Like we're really good at video games, and I got ridiculed. I was there like they're only good at StarCraft. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, we got 150 ping and we're still doing good. They're like, no way. Like you guys aren't gonna be that good. And like they would ridicule us, and like they would ridicule me because I was the one that spoke English, and I was always like Korea's gonna be really good. I mean, I always knew Korea was gonna be good. Like systematically, like Korea is really good at churning out pro gamer. It's like a factory. Like young boys come in one end and then pro gamers pop out the other.
Okay. So obviously in the finals, you got swept by Blaze. Right. First of all, what do you think of when Woon was a top laner? Like, was he a good player? Did he choke in the finals?
That's all like the entirety of the story. Okay. So it's gonna sound ridiculous now, but so I invented a term called snowballing. And then, like, even before the game, like, they asked me a joke. Because, like, it was, like, for everyone else involved, like, it was a giant joke. But for me, I was like, this is how you should play the game. Like, they were like, what's your favorite kind of ball? I was like, what do you mean? And then the caster, like the OGN, like the, what is it? The screaming guy? The really big OGN caster, like the really famous one, like he asked me that joke because like Cloud Templar joked about it on his stream, and then everyone's like, oh, Loco's crazy about Snowball. Loco's crazy about Snowball. Because I would be like, we cannot give up 1 kill, and this is what we should do. When you get 1 kill, you should play towards that lane, and this is called Snowball. Like you snowball the lead you have.
Yes.
And then everyone's like, you're so obsessed about Snowball. Like you can't just get 1 kill and win the game, and you can't like. There's no snowball. It's just like something you're obsessing about. And then they made a joke about it, like what's Loco's kind of ball? And then the joke was it's snowball. Like ha ha ha, so funny. And then like I was like, we need to snowball the lane like so much. And then it's like snowballing is super important. So like me and Cloud had like a big argument about. I'm like, if I get a kill, then we're coming bottom and we're snowballing the lane. And because we did that a lot, and we wanted to move away from them a little bit. Like pre-level 6, me and Mad Life would be able to make a lot of kills. And at level 6, Cloud Templar would play something like Skarner and Amumu, and he would gank level 6, and I wanted to take turret. And while it sounds like in theory like a very simple strategy nowadays, but it was like mind-blowing to people back then. Like,
but here's the thing, okay, so obviously yes, you have won all the splits with G2, and now you've actually had like MSI, you had a good result, etc. You've never actually had to really think about leaving though, right? You're still under contract, you're still thinking about that scenario, so you've never been actually put in that situation, right? You're still a European player.
I mean, like, I was thinking I mean, of course, every player, like, has thoughts about their future and, like, what they want to do and stuff. And, like, very often, I mean, like, no season, like, I just think about where I see myself in the future, you know? And as I can see, like, I cannot see myself on any other EU team other than G2. And I cannot see myself on any teams, at least, like, for the next couple of years, you know? Because I just prefer having a successful roster. And as much as I think NA players are not bad and NA infrastructure is really good, I still think that EU players are much more talented, and every time it shows in the end that EU players like pick up the slack, you know, or like everything, like they're just better, you know. That's still what I think, you know. So as much as people say that NA success, like you can have the same success in NA as in EU, I still don't think that is true. That's just my personal opinion. I think NA is like still like a good region to be in. Like it's like really, really solid orgs everywhere, like from number 1 to number 10. That's not the same in EU. And I don't know, there's like hot weather, good infrastructure, a lot of coaching stuff, like everything. Like there's a lot more money involved, you know, in NA than in EU. But I still think that if you want to have success, you need to play in the EU. But they may change also, you know. So yeah, sure. And I actually had like an interesting talk like with Peanut and Koma during MSI. Like after the finals, like the after party, and I realized like how similar they think to how we think, and how similar they are because they have won so many splits in LCK, you know. Yes. So it's like everyone everyone wants to see you lose, you know, just like as much as like now we have fans and we still have haters, of course, as everyone, you know, people just want to see G2 lose, you know. So now when we actually like are on the same roster, it's not going to be the same, you know, even if you lose, like, or if you win. If you win, it's going to be great, but if you lose, like, it's not going to be the same. They're not going to be like, oh, we have taken down this roster that has won 4 times, you know. Like, no one can have this, you know. So this is like the thing, I guess, that we have now, like us 5 players, or like mostly Trick and I, because like we won 4 splits. It's like we have this thing that no one can take away from us, you know. So that's the way it feels good. But in terms of like the whole looking at career, is like I just want to win an international tournament. Like I'm just gonna work so hard for it, like to win MSI or Worlds one day, like no matter what. And to do that, you have to win the split, you know, to get to MSI, for example. So yeah, sure. I'm gonna like. But the thing is, like, it's not easy. Like people think it was easy for us in G2, you know, but like people don't know like how much hard work we put, like how much stress there is, how much like inner pressure, you know, and everything. Like it's really not as easy as it seems to win every split, you know. And that's like what people maybe are not understanding completely yet for the ELCS, you know.
When I make content, it isn't just me, the mic, and a guest or a topic. It's also me with the support of my whole crew. Who's that, you might ask? The Skrilluminati. That's who. They include Frisky, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Ahmed Hadjou, Tosh, Tobias Bernasconi, Jensen Goh, Animosity, Tooorin, and you know it if you've heard it before, but if you haven't, a special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Well, if you want to know upcoming topics and guests I'm going to have on my channel, maybe you want to ask me a question to answer in an AMA in video fashion. Do you want to hear one of those long discussions and actually be part of it and be able to ask me questions? Want to find out who I'm going to interview next? If any of these perks or more appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Skrilluminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.